using a salad that is composed of dandelion greens or chicory greens with red onion, with garlic, with radishes, with beets, with some ginger root, with hot peppers such as cayenne, jalapeno. That helps to kind of gin up the cellular metabolism, to help it to throw off, to help the cells excrete a lot of the material that has built up on the inside. But as this season of the lung, which is autumn season, the lung in Chinese medicine is also associated with the organ of the large intestine. So you also want to clean out the large intestine with a laxative of some type. You can use senna, you can use cascara. An easy one over the counter is magnesium citrate. But cleaning out the colon and then using the hot salad with an avocado orange juice dressing or an apple cider vinegar dressing for 3, 4, 5, 6 days is a good detoxification process, so that you are eliminating a lot of the things that have built up, a lot of the mucus that has built up into the system, such that when the weather gets cold, you're not going to be nearly as susceptible to the viruses and the bacteria that are going to become more prominent in our environment and in the people around you.
Okay. And as you're going through this, are you also taking the vitamin C, the vitamin D3, and the other supplements?
Well, you know, I've always advocated on a daily basis taking about a minimum 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C and about 1,000 units of vitamin D. So yes, we can continue with this, but you can get some extra added benefit if you want to use orange juice with a little cayenne pepper. And right now there's still some cantaloupes out. Juicing a cantaloupe with some orange juice, some cayenne pepper, put a little dandelion green in. You can enhance the amount of vitamin C that you're getting also, or use lemon juice, a little bit of honey, cayenne pepper.
Okay, and just so I'm clear, when you say juicing, are you saying putting it through a juicer or blending it with water or something?
Blending it.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that's the protocol for fall. So what we have done up to now is we took the super colon cleanse.
Correct.
Some of that yesterday, took some of that today.
Right.
And then the solstice the equinox starts tomorrow.
It's officially the 22nd.
Okay.
You know, but you know, since this is a transition of energy, we usually say 21 through 24.
Okay.
The 21st, which is tomorrow, through the 24th, which would be Thursday, would be the autumnal equinox, though the exact 12-hour of days and 12 hours of night is going to be on Tuesday.
Okay. And again, this is just basically a raw food regimen for these 4 days.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then you can do a water fast after that if you want to just enhance the benefits. But then don't go right back to your regular diet. You still want to do at least 10 days of no mock meats if you're a vegetarian, you know, I'm sorry, yeah, if you're vegan. You want to keep your amount of sodium low, no more than a quarter teaspoon a day, and certainly no processed sugar. You know, you don't want to eat anything sweet during this time, because sugar has a detrimental effect on the immune system. So you only want to do that in a moderate dose anytime, but certainly not during this time when you're trying to detoxify and gin up the immune system to be strong for the fall season.
Okay. So we're doing the raw for these 4, 5, and maybe even 6 days, and then
correct,
following that up with maybe a water fast.
Yes.
and then eating clean for a number of days following that.
For about 10 days after that, yes.
Okay. Talk about what it means to eat clean.
Sure. When we're talking about eating clean, we're talking about pesticide-free food, non-GMO food. We're talking about not eating things that come out of packages, the snack foods that people are so fond of. If you're vegetarian, not eating the mock meats, the mock bacon, the mock sausage, the mock chicken made from various types of vegetable protein. You're trying to eat fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, and whole grains, nuts, seeds, raw, all organic, and that is what we consider a clean diet. A filtered spring or reverse osmosis, high pH water.
Okay. A lot of folks will hear us talking about eating organic, fresh fruits, vegetables, produce, and whatnot, and the first reaction is, oh, it's organic, it's expensive. Can we allay some concerns about the cost of eating this way versus eating the other way?
Two things. So, if you're changing your insurance, they look at something called pre-existing conditions. And so if you've got a pre-existing condition, your health insurance rates are going to be a little bit higher. So if you eat a certain kind of way, you're going to, if not prevent, ameliorate a lot of the chronic diseases, which will be listed as a premorbid condition or a pre-existing condition, like diabetes, like high blood pressure, like heart disease, like kidney disease. So even though it may look expensive as you go to the grocery store, in the long run, your insurance premiums, your co-pays on doctor visits, your co-pays on medicines, the longevity and the quality of your longevity will be much more than if you chose not to do this now. The other thing is, what I tell people, especially during the fall season, brown rice and beans, especially when you get them in bulk, aren't expensive. They're not expensive. So you can buy lentils, you can buy pinto beans and red beans and black eyed peas and brown rice and barley, all organic, and you can feed a large family and it doesn't cost you a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I've been out looking for brown rice. Right now, it's kind of hard to find in bulk. I'm gonna have to find someone online to send me that 50-pound bag and just be done with it. I went to Fresh Time a couple days ago, and I noticed that they stopped selling brown rice in bulk. And then I was at Whole Foods yesterday, and it was the same thing. I just couldn't find it. So, but I know that there are sources, and I would have to imagine that there's been quite a demand for those products since the awareness about their value is growing. It's the same thing if you go looking for zinc lozenges or elderberry. The memo has gone out.
Correct. Correct.
People are taking this seriously right now. So just have to be diligent. But I think too, as you navigate this whole idea of eating more healthy and you start visiting different stores, at least I have a map. So I know which stores that I can go to get certain things. Like
this. Yes.
So if I want organic sweet potatoes, for instance, I go to Trader Joe's.
Right.
Because they sell them in a package in bulk.
Correct.
Well, not in bulk, but they sell you a bag of potatoes versus the individual potatoes because you pay more that way.
Right.
If I want avocados, there are certain stores that I go to and certain stores that I don't go to. You know,
Correct.
like
I go to
yeah,
I go to Joe's to get my organic avocados because up until recently they were less than $1 a piece.
hmm
If you go to Whole Foods, they're like $2.
yeah,
250.
yeah,
Trader Joe's, since the fires in California, the price has gone up some,
hmm
but it's still cheaper than in other places. But what I'm doing is I'm investing in my health for the long run. So yes, it may be more of my budget now, but I don't have to have co-pays for doctor visits. I go I go to my doctor once a year to tell him I want to run these blood tests. And I check my blood tests. I don't need their advice for anything. And fortunately, I've got people that I've worked with, so they accept how I run my life.
hmm
I don't have to spend, a lot of money on copay for medications because I don't need anything. My health insurance premiums, are minuscule compared to a lot of other people my age. Why? Because I don't have any pre-existing comorbid conditions, and so you're investing, it may be more of your budget now, but you have to think in the long term in terms of, how well I'll be able to function. And one of the things, in our community is that the elders die before they have the time to actually impart what it is that they know to the young people, or establish a transitional leadership so that when they die, the institutions that they've created don't just wither and atrophy. So we have our heroes, like King, like Malcolm, who died way too soon because of an assassin's bullet. But then we've got others who die because of heart disease, who die because of diabetes, or who end up with dementia and can no longer teach and talk. So we have to stay around long enough so that we can be a guide to the young people. I talk about now how, so much of the stuff that I see now is just a rehash of COINTELPRO when J. Edgar Hoover was running the FBI. If you want to know about an organization, infiltrate it with people who look like them. So we have people who are legitimately going out and protesting for injustices, but they are going to be sidetracked by somebody who's going to want to up the ante and say, well, let's go over here and knock over this store. This is a capitalist pig, so let's go break into this store. Those are the ones that the government pays to lead other people astray. It's an old tactic. And then you'll find the young people don't know any better, so now they're caught up in getting arrested and getting a charge against them, having to find a lawyer and fight all of this, instead of, had you just been protesting, and not trying to become violent, it changes the whole dynamic of what happens. One of the things, I didn't think that it would happen, but I was only 14. White people seeing dogs sicked on Black children in Alabama made them decide to change things. They got tired of seeing women hosed down with water hoses. They didn't want to see that on their news. So they got with Kennedy and Robert and John, and things were done differently. They went and took the guy, George Wallace, who stood in the halls of the university down there and said no Black person was going to get in. And they had the marshals usher him out. There is something that protests can do. But all of a sudden now, when you become what you hate against, and that is mindless violence, the legitimacy of the protest is diminished. Do we get angry? Some of us do. Some of us don't do. But what I was always taught, don't get angry, get even. You can only get even if you stay even keeled internally and think of a solution, and when you eat a certain way, when you're eating bad food, your emotional reactions come much faster. And also your ability to problem solve is diminished because you're getting poor quality nutrients that nourish the brain cells, that nourish the neurons. So your cognition is off, your ability to synthesize and process information, your reasoning, all of that goes because of the deficient diet that you're eating.
Yes. And yesterday, when we were having a conversation on the air, you were talking about how food that we're eating can play a role in our depression.
Absolutely, absolutely, because the intestinal tract has a certain quality of bacteria, numerous different types in various numbers. It's called the gut biome. It's like a little world inside of us. And having the proper balance of bacteria allows them to produce certain neurotransmitters like serotonin, which is what the brain uses in certain cells to talk to each other. But serotonin levels are associated with our sense of well-being, our sense of joy and happiness. And the largest amount of serotonin cells are in the intestinal tract. But they don't function properly if there's not the right kinds of bacteria there. So having a good probiotic and not eating decayed animal flesh helps that gut biome stay healthy. Then you're processing and making the right kinds of neurotransmitters, which helps to keep the mood elevated. It doesn't diminish, or if something untoward happens, an adverse circumstance happens, you're much better able to center yourself instead of flying into a rage or flying into the depths of despair and frustration.
That's interesting. I was walking back home yesterday and I encountered a young person that had a pit bull. And it was an older person with them, but the young person had the dog. And I love dogs, you know, and I have this strange notion that some dogs don't see me as a threat because I'm not a threat to their food supply. But I was also thinking about, you know, could there be that there is a different sensibility about us because we're vegan? Could it be that we might be happier people because we're not affected by that physiology that you just mentioned in terms of the effect that meat might have on us?
I wouldn't categorically say that, but I would say that it certainly changes the kind of energy that one gives off. But also, let's not forget that we're also, you know, when we're born, there's a planetary alignment in place that stamps us with a certain kind of energetic configuration. And all of us, you know, to quote Albert King, we were all born under a bad sign, which means that all he's saying is that there are some things that we have enough of, but there are some things we have too much of and some things we don't have enough of. So those energy imbalances gives us our personal idiosyncrasies, many times some of which we have to, in order to function successfully in life, we've got to correct those imbalances. So some of us may be not assertive enough when we should be. Some of us may be overly aggressive enough, you know, may be over aggressive than we should be. Some people may use their wiles in certain kinds of sketchy ways when, you know, they shouldn't, you know, but all of those are energetic influences. So that also has a bearing too on how plants, which have a consciousness, as well as animals, perceive us.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So yes, our diet has something to do with it, but also just the kind of energy stamp that we also have too, you know, because, you know, I'm sure you've met some, there are some people who are vegans who are mean-spirited.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, you know, we're also influenced by traumatic experiences in our lives that can
Yes.
to our personality.
Yes.
So, you know, all
True.
these things come into play. I wanted to just briefly look at the other seasons. I've gone through the winter solstice a couple of times, so I kind of know what I'm in for 3 months from now. Uh, but and quiet as is kept, I actually look forward to it because
Yeah.
it's an opportunity for me to test my ability to exercise that discipline. And it's interesting, Dr. Brown, because 1 or 2 days into it, you find yourself not wanting to eat.
Right.
You find yourself saying, well, how far can I push this? It's like, okay, it's day 4. Do I want to eat tomorrow? It's like, I really don't want to eat tomorrow.
You get to the point where when it's time to break the fast
Mm-hmm.
and you feel so good,
Right.
you say, I don't want this feeling to end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, just so that we can let folks know what they're in for after these 3 months, could you talk about the transition from fall into winter and how that looks?
Sure. So in fall, it is the energy of the lungs and the large intestine. And because we're going from warm and dry to cold and dry, but then we're going to go from cold and dry to cold and wet starting December 21st. And that cold and wet is analogous to the kidney organ system, kidney and bladder, because they control water. Water is cold and wet. So we'll still have the respiratory issues, but cold and wet means that our receptivity, because water is a universal solvent, it kind of dissolves anything that you put into it. It is our ability to be receptive. So at that time, that's a really, really good time to program ourselves for new habits and new behaviors. Fall, because we're detoxifying and it's the energy of the lung, which is where we eliminate a good amount of the waste, carbon dioxide. The season of the colon, where we eliminate physical waste, is a good time to get rid of bad habits, bad traits that we have, and prepare ourselves for the winter season, when it is a great time to actually imprint into ourselves good habits, good projects about changing our character in ways that we realize over time as we inventory ourselves. This particular thing that I do doesn't serve me well. I'm trying to overcome this. I'm trying to stop eating late at night. I'm trying to be in relationship with this person, and I'm not going to keep getting frustrated because they don't seem to understand what it is that I'm saying. I'm not going to keep getting angry in this situation because this is somebody I'm in relationship with, but they touch this particular nerve that I have. Winter is a good time for doing that, especially the winter solstice from December 21st through December 24th, because that's when the days are the absolute shortest, which means the night is the longest. The night is analogous to the yin in the Chinese yin and yang. The night is governed by the moon, which is the yin vehicle. The day is governed by the sun, which is the yang. It's that outward energy. It is that garrulous energy. It's the extrovert. But as the days get shorter and reach their shortest on December the 21st through the 4th, then that's the time when we are the most receptive. So we can really change a whole lot about ourselves during that time. Then December 25th, the Messiah is born. The sun starts to have 1 more minute of daylight starting December 25th. And that increases from December 25th through March 21st, which is spring. And in springtime is now when the days are longer than the nights. So springtime, that's when the energy which has gone underground, internalized from the fall through the winter, now starts to quote unquote spring forth. That energy is springing forth. And so the energy is rising from the root of the plant up through the stem or the trunk into the branches and the leaves. So now we start to see the flowers come back. Later on, we'll see the fruits come back. But that's also the springing forth of traits inside of ourselves. So, but that springing forth is another major time to detoxify. It's governed by the liver. And so that's another great time where we are going to use the hot salad again to also help eliminate the toxins that have built up over the winter, because metabolism has slowed down and our ability to get rid of toxins has slowed down. So spring, that's where the whole concept of spring cleaning comes from. Yes, externally, it's a good time to clean your house, but that was only as a consequence of the ancient scientists recognizing we're going through an internal cleansing process as this solar energy starts to heighten itself in our being, in our Manipura chakra, in our heart chakra. That energy starts to go from dormancy to ascendancy now that we have the ability to actually clean ourselves out from the winter. So that's another good time to use the hot fast.
Okay. And then going from spring to summer.
And so from in the springtime, so you're planting your garden, but you also have to manage the weeds. So metaphysically, we have spent the winter time imprinting our spirit, our energy aspect of our being with new habits, new traits, new abilities that we want to have. In the springtime, you have to make sure that your old habits don't come back. That's the weeding of the garden. You want to analyze and make sure that these things I said I wanted to manifest in the winter, that I thought I got rid of in autumn, I want to make sure and take inventory and make sure that those things aren't still there. By the time we get to summer, all the things that you planted during the winter solstice should be showing forth. The abilities that you wanted, the habits that you wanted, the conditionings that you wanted should be coming forth. And since we're midway through the annual cycle, that's a good time to fast for further insight, to just doing the orange juice and the water and fasting, because what you're trying to do is not stay grounded. Then I want to elevate my consciousness to the higher parts of my being, because I want to look at the progress I have made over the last 6 months of the planting and the harvesting cycle that I've done spiritually.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that we're doing more of a fast during the winter, and we're doing more of a fast during the summer, or going into summer.
During the solstices. Yes.
During the solstices. Okay.
Yes.
All right. That makes sense to me now. So it won't be as difficult for me to figure out what mode I'm supposed to be in based on the season.
Yeah. The equinoxes are great for detox. I detox on the solstices too, but our body's physiology is really geared toward detox in the fall and in the spring.
Okay. All right. Well, that pretty much sums it up. Just a couple more things before I let you go, and I have to let you know I really appreciate you spending this time with me, because I know you spending this time with me means you're spending it with other folks who need to know as well.
I appreciate the platform. Yeah.
I ran across a video yesterday about a medication or a drug called ivermectin.
I don't know that one.
Okay.
No.
I think I may have sent you an email with a link to a video about this. But it's a doctor who was saying that she had used ivermectin to treat patients for COVID. And she said that it worked, and that it had gained prominence and use in South America. It is a drug that was manufactured by Merck, and it's a relatively cheap drug. So they have treated ivermectin kind of the way that they've treated Plaquenil or
Yes, yes,
hydrochloroquine,
right.
they're pushing away from using it because I think they want to kind of push the whole notion of a vaccine. But this doctor was so enthused by the results that she was getting from it that she proposed that they do trials using this.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what she's gotten has been a hand to the face because pharmaceutical companies don't want to invest in research on something that's not going to make them as much money as something else.
And let's face it also that there is an agenda about the vaccines. I'm not going to go, off on vaccinations, but we have to recognize there is an agenda for vaccines, especially in America and Europe, but they also want to actually, implement this. And we heard Bill, I can't remember if it was Bill or his wife, Melinda Gates, said that the Africans should get the COVID vaccine first,
Mm-hmm.
one of them. So if that's an agenda, treatment, effective treatment is not going to be widely broadcast. So I'll have to take a look at the ivermectin study. Thank you for sending me the link, but I don't know anything about it. But I just am aware that there are things that have been shown to be effective, but they won't get widely publicized. They won't get a lot of money for funding because pretty much the agenda is on a vaccine. It's extremely profitable. The market for vaccines is burgeoning, and I assert that a lot of the information about COVID-19 is geared towards promoting people to line up for the vaccine.
Yes. Well, I'll just say this. There is a lot of information. There's a lot of misinformation. You see videos and you think, there's the answer. And then you find out from other sources that it may not be true. So
Right.
we're kind of in a place where
Yeah.
we really don't know what to believe. We don't really know what to think. So I just appreciate having some kind of sense that no matter what happens, we're going to be okay,
Right.
And I
Right.
think we have to do things within our own lives to promote our own well-being and our own self-care and self-comfort so that we don't have to walk around with this fear. But, it's so easy to get caught up in what the latest conspiracy theory is. For instance, I saw a video that had Bill Gates doing a CIA briefing in which he talked about having created a virus that could be proliferated in the Middle East, and it would affect the brain physiology of an Islamic fundamentalist and basically desensitize or deprogram that person to discourage them from strapping a bomb on and blowing up a building somewhere, And the video was extremely believable, But then you get to sharing these things, and then of course you got websites like Snopes and others where they'll discount it. And then you see something that about Snopes that says, well, Snopes is funded by this group, and this is why they might want to debunk certain kinds of things. So then it's like, well, dag, what do you believe? And then you look at the medical community and you see some doctors who are on this side and some doctors who are on that side, and doctors who speak out against certain things get vilified and demonized and so forth. So then that kind of supports the whole confusion that we're existing in right now.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have planetary energy that supports the confusion. I mean, we had 5 to 6 planets that were retrograde at the same time,
right.
Which really kind of contributes to that. So, but we're moving towards the age of Aquarius. Some have said that December 21st marks the beginning of that new age. And it is an age that will be kind of exemplary of Ma'at. It's going to be dominated by feminine divine, feminine energy. It's going to
Correct.
be an age of truthfulness and justice and all these other kinds of things. So when you look at it on what I call the cosmic level, for lack of a better way of putting it, when you look at things on the cosmic level, it gives you reason to at least have a certain sense of hope. Because if truth and
Oh, yeah.
justice and balance are pervasive, then how can those negative oppositions be in a dominant state?
Well, we were talking about cycles. And so I'll just go back to the analogy of what we were talking about the 24-hour day and 365 year. So if we are in winter now, where there's darkness, despair, death, and confusion, what follows winter? Spring. This everything that's beautiful and healthy and wonderful starts coming back into play again. If we're at midnight, if we're at the deepest, darkest point in the 24-hour cycle, what follows that? Sunrise. Now, you and I have lived on this planet for 6 and 7 decades. Have you ever had a day when the sun didn't come up? Have you ever had a year when spring never showed up? They always come. So if we're at midnight, if we're in winter, sunrise will come, spring will come. It's a cycle. And our ancestors charted, the Mayans charted it, Indus Kush charted, and Kemet charted. So there is this era of 24,600 years that this planet goes through, which is broken down into 2,500 years of each sign of the zodiac. And so with this calendar, if they were able to chart out a cycle of 24,600 years, how long did they have to be in existence for them to see that? So how many times has darkness come that was followed by light? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of years of civilization. This ain't the first time we've been through this.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Let me just say, and one other thing, we have to give honor and thanks to the ancestors, because just like the Western scientists have looked at the various organ systems of the body, our ancestors did an anatomical study of the parts of the spirit. And we've got that wisdom part of the spirit and the ability to access, so to cut through the confusion of what's truth and what's not truth. Two things. We had a history of using oracles. So people need to embrace that understanding again, not get caught up by the spooky witchcraft of throwing lots, which is what the Hebrews did. But every ancient culture had a methodology for talking to God until the faculty within them was developed enough where they could hear the voice of God themselves. But by keeping centered, by not giving in to those emotional responses, you start to hear the voice of God in situations, or telling you, that ain't really true. That ain't really right. And everybody needs to have under their belt a way of using some kind of Ifa, Meduniter, I Ching, some kind of oracular system to help you to separate the wheat from the chaff.
yes. I think that's a great place to conclude the conversation. You've given us a lot of food for thought, no question. And I want to thank you for being who you are, and being the resource that you are to the community. And I hope to continue these conversations so that folks can get some insight on another way to look at things. Because if they have their way, we'd be eating Cheetos all day and going to the hospital and going to the grave, and they move on to the next client. But there are things that we can do to experience a much better quality of life. And I think too, we have to get to a point where we're not afraid to exercise the discipline that it takes for us to experience a great quality of life. You know, sometimes
Absolutely.
you just got to walk away from the ice cream, you know, but it helps to know what that ice cream is, you know. And as you described it a few moments ago, I don't know how anybody being consciously aware of what it is would make that choice.
You know, you want to own the frozen dairy treat. You don't want it to own you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know, just knowing that you can put those cashews in the Vitamix and put a couple of ice cubes in there and a banana or something and an avocado and push that blender on, you can have that treat with natural sugar, and it's going to taste and feel like ice cream, but it's not going to be cow puffs and all that other kind of stuff. So there are other ways to enjoy life. You just have to be.
For people who have a Jones for sweets, there's always figs and dates.
Oh, yeah.
You won't find anything sweeter than a date. My goodness, it's so sweet. I can only take a bite out of one, and then I have to put the rest away. But if you've got that Jones for sugar, that's a very natural and healthy way to get your sugar fix. But again, you want to own yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want anything to be in control of you.
Yes. Absolutely.
We are sovereign. Yeah.
There it is. Sovereignty is the key. And when you wake up to your sovereignty, you'll see the world in a completely different way. I promise you. One more time, the book is Stress-Free for Life. And I highly recommend that book, you know, and it's not so much the book, as you said, it's your response to reading the book, because the book is not going to do what you need to do. You got to do
the work.
What you need to do, but it is a good tool to elevate your understanding and to figure out, you know, how your brain works, how it affects the quality of your life. So I'll leave it there. This video will be available on Facebook, so people can, you know, view it at a later time. They can fast forward or rewind as they need to do or as they choose to do. But again, it's just so important for folks to have this awareness, because if you do have this awareness, it actually will and can improve the quality of your life. And that's why I always say, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, you know, and as you know, that self is a reflection of the divine. It's the not self that gets us.
You got it down, man.
I finally got it. It's
beautiful.
It's a challenge to explain it to folks because it's hard to separate those two things. But yeah.
You did a good job.
Yeah, I get it. And I will continue to put that out there. Thanks again, Dr. Brown. I appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the platform, Vince. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a peaceful day.
And you too. Peace.
Peace.